It's the True Penny Show with your host, James True Penny.
Hello and welcome to the True Penny Show. My name's James True Penny. This is my show, and today is a very, very special episode, A Life and Times of the Hardcore Queen, Megumi Kudo, in honor of her election to the Hardcore Hall of Fame, the wondrous career that she had in FNW and All Japan Women, and somewhat surprisingly to come and join and celebrate this life, Mr. Marcus Green of Baton Rouge, Louisiana, who's not known for his appreciation of death matches. But he was a man brave enough to don the goggles and the fireproof outfit and join us on this show. How you doing, sir?
Good. Another rabbit hole to go down, courtesy of one
You've gone off
James.
screen again.
Oh, wow.
Oh, you're not there. I've been too loud again. Are you there, Marcus?
Can you hear me now?
Mic went off,
Okay.
mic came back on again.
All
right.
Can you hear me?
Let me come back. Can you hear me now, Marcus?
I can. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Oh,
Are we still recording? We're good. Let's go then, shall we?
yes, sir.
Okay. I'll keep that intro. It was good. I'm share our videos so we can watch together. Don't share audio. That'll be okay. I'll get that run. From Baton Rouge, Louisiana, it's Marcus Green. How you doing, sir?
All good. Glad to be back. Going down another quite intriguing rabbit hole, courtesy of your, James True Penny himself. And quite a ride. But we made it a mission to give people their flowers, mostly specifically while they're still here. And honoring women is always a priority from the True Penny class. So this was another cool. Like you said, I'm not as keen to the death matches of it all, but just the fact that as women of this ilk who was even willing to do them, much less master them, is quite a feat.
Yes. Megumi Kudo, to be fair, this first episode concentrates on Megumi Kudo's wrestling career rather than a hardcore career, and there is one street fight in this. But these are some of the best wrestling matches she ever had. And it concentrates on a one long story arc that starts in 1986 and ends in 1994, with her reaching the peak of professional respectability, should we say? I think that's the right way of going about it, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And we start in 1986, as all great things do.
Yeah.
After the raft of success with the Crush Girls and Daisuke Dome, and Bull Nakano and Dump Matsumoto, there were plenty of young athletic women who wanted to become part of the All Japan Women Dojo. And Megumi Kudo was one of those said women, and she joined the class of 1986. The class which included such people as Bison Kimura, Aja Kong, Akira Hokuto, who Marcus is very familiar with, Manami Suzuka, and a lady called Combat Toyota, who would have a very big influence on her career later on. She was trained by the legendary Jaggi Yokota, someone else Marcus is very familiar with, because we've done Life and Times on both those people. And she joined the ranks of the women's wrestling company AJW on August the 8th, 1986. And the first match on our playlist is her first match against fellow rookie Kaoru Maeda, who we've also done a Life and Times on. Myself and Dara did a Life and Times when she retired in 2022. So, what's your first impressions of Megumi Kudo in her standard arena pink swimsuit, Marcus?
Yeah, I appreciate it. Like, it's always interesting when we cover the women specifically and looking at their aesthetic evolution.
Yeah.
Because they start off so nice, calm, and sweet, and then for some of these women who turned into legendary villains, it's quite a transition. But yeah, just watching this match, I grew a whole new appreciation for headlock takeover.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because it's like like it's something so simple and something so kind of paint by numbers, and the States can here it's like it's aggressively intense, which I appreciate.
Yeah, I think it's a bit like tilt-a-whirl backbreakers in Mexico. It's kind of it's an embarrassment if you can get it on if you can get it, if you the kind of the story with the tilt-a-whirl backbreaker is if you can get it on a guy, then he should be embarrassed that you allowed him to do that to you. And it's kind of like the snapmare, kind of like a similar kind of thing in AJW in the 80s, I think, as well. And it's kind of watching it, it's kind of very British style. If you've watched a lot of World of Sport, there's a lot of kind of more British style mat work and grappling in this kind of wrestling at this
Yeah.
particular time period, I think. Would you agree?
No, absolutely. And the other thing I appreciate is just like how much they did to the mat. Because like a lot of
Mm.
times, obviously we've seen a lot of amateurs come and go through the business, but two that I particularly come to mind is like guys like Brock and Kurt, uh, who were very dominant, when they were in college and whatnot. And certainly, obviously, Kurt won with a broken freaking neck, literally. And yeah, so I just appreciated, just adhering to the mat and just how much the wear and tear of your opponent, just really getting back to the basics, which we deeply appreciate here. But
Hmm.
yeah, I just, like you said, just kind of getting to that British style of just grinding of your opponent and what that, this is again another instance where it's like you can call it fake if you want to, but get in there and see just how much stamina you got when somebody's just leaning in on you and treating and turning you into a gristle for some 10 odd minutes.
Yeah, this is that. It's if you are used to the rookies in New Japan Pro Wrestling who have a very similar kind of basic style, Kaoru and Megumi both have a little more leeway. There's a lot of hair pulling.
Yeah,
Megumi's no, she follows the rules kind of. It's in the rough area of the rules. She's morally ambiguous as a wrestler at a particular point in her career. So yeah, this was an interesting watch and kind of for both of them doesn't really kind of like give you an impression of what they would become because both of them their wrestling styles would become kind of high impact, high flying, and much more violent than this. But it's obviously interesting to see where both wrestlers start, and this is their debut performance. And they get a good response from the crowd, who are clearly into what they do because AJW in this time period is a bit closer to what TJPW is now. There are heels, there's one group of heels, but generally speaking, when you see a new wrestler, you're kind of like trying to see who you're going to tie into, who you're going to cheer for, who you're going to follow for the rest of their career. And this was a good example of like a debut of two people, one who had the most amazing stellar career in possibly in women's wrestling history, and another one who went on to wrestle for the next 35 years at the highest level. And that's quite incredible when you're watching this videotape because we know what happens. We got to see the ending. We've seen the spoilers. So it is really cool to see. Kudo was quite well liked in the dressing room. Funnily enough, Dump Matsumoto became her mentor because Dump thought she was funny. And she was young because she was only 16 when she did this. This was her first match at 16 years old because, of course, it's Joshi. And Dump used to go and talk to her because she was trying to figure out what the kid's into, right? So Dump would cut promos based on what Megumi had said to her prior to the match. And the first time she did it, she was terrified because, of course, it's Dump Matsumoto. She's just generally terrified anyway. And her senior is using her lines in her promo. And everyone was kind of getting a bit jealous because Dump thought she was great and would borrow her lines and what she said and use them in her promos, which I think is really cool and interesting because Dump had an eye on her and thought she was really, really good. Is there anything else you'd like to say, or should we move on to the next match, sir?
well, I appreciated that because all the best teachers remain students, as you know,
Exactly.
specifically teaching yourself. So the fact that because a lot of times you don't see that a lot of times that a lot of people kind of get off kind of thumbing their nose down at the younger talents or the fresh meat, if you will, from their perspective, and don't feel like they can really learn anything. But you can, or you and I both know, you can learn something like spectacular just based on somebody that may be, unhoused on the street. You just never
Mhm.
close that gate to knowledge. So, the fact that she took what she said to try to tap into a younger generation and then use what she said against her. It just shows, that she's just how great of a talent she was.
Yes, exactly. So our next match is another rookies match, but this is for a championship, and it's for the AJW Junior Championship, an exceptionally respected title that was won by some of the major stars in AJW. If this belt was on you, just like the Sendai Girls Junior Championship is today, then you were going places. And the champion is, well, this is for the vacant championship at the time. And Kyoki Aso and Megumi Kudo are challenging for it. And I think this is an interesting match because first of all, you've got Aso coming out with Akira Hokuto, who's now a trainer in the dungeon, is the absolute superstar of the class of '86. So she's accompanying her to the ring. Kudo's got somebody else with her, but she's got another rookie with her who's not as well known. The camera's focusing on Aso all the way through this intro. She gets the flowers first, and it intrigues me. Is like it's not like they're telegraphing who's going to win this, but there's a bit of here's Aso, who's like, she's 5'8", she's gorgeous, she's got this long flowing hair, and she's statuesque, and she's got a look about her. And Kudo is not that, is she? She's kind of small, a bit undersized, can clearly wrestle a streak, but she's not the one you pick. Would you agree, Marcus?
Yeah, like you said, even like you said, even if you don't know translation wise, you can kind of, like you said, by camera angles and whatnot, the sheer presentation, because that a lot of times carries things far more than even language can. You kind of go with it, but this is a building block match for Kudo, because in these instances where you don't, I mean, if you already kind of know the proverbial fixes in, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
you don't have to worry about the pressure. Pressure's off. You can just go in there and just show and prove and show why it's only going to be like this for so long before your guys are. I'm the showcase. Which thankfully she gave as good as she got, which only made these affairs great, even if she wasn't winning.
Yeah, and the interesting thing about this is Aso retires 6 months later. Well, so I think she retires. She was champion and was undefeated at retirement. She retires in October of 1987. So we are talking like literally 8 months later. She finally retires. Jagu Kota is at ringside. She's commentating on this match. But it's all hell breaks loose from the start. It's full court press wrestling. Kudo starts off with an armbar after the handshake, and then Aso is straight into her as well. This is kind of like breakneck speed AJW rookie wrestling of the 80s at its most. AJW wrestling of the 80s. It's full tilt. Basic maneuvers done exceptionally well and exceptionally quickly. And trying to like move with that as well. There's a bit of shoot style stuff in there. There's like that Grovit, that the front face lock that Aso has on is kind of very Lancashire. So it's an interesting style of match. But it's quite clear that Kudo is the nearly person in this particular situation. Is there anything else that strikes out from you this match?
No, not necessarily. Like you said, it was interesting. Just like the difference in presentations, even though at certain points it kind of came on like, okay, like Kudo is like clearly a problem, and and it's interesting, like you said, just this style alone, because like I'm trying to envision this particular style of match in front of like a pay-per-view audience today in the States.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't know what to do with it. I feel
No.
like they wouldn't know what to do with it at all. It's like, what are they on the ground hugging? What are they doing? So
Yeah.
it's yeah, it's always interesting and stuff. But yeah, like you said, that's kind of disappointing that, like you said, she ended up retiring 6 months later. That a lot of these women that we covered have had some very um interesting aspects of their career when it looked like they were either going to retire or they had to pack it in early. Um,
Mm.
how those, doors kind of went. Uh, a lot of certain situations I feel like we covered could have went differently had certain people not retired or um, what have you. But it's so when we continue to go down this list, it's so many legends that ended up being packed in one company. It's almost like you almost don't miss somebody like Alpha, and there's no taking a shot at her. But when you have like half the people we've done kind of Mount Rushmore's on are in this company right now, so it's like
Yeah,
it's they had like a legendary roster at a very interesting time.
absolutely. And that's kind of Kudo's problem. The issue becomes for Kudo that she is sixth in the pecking order in her class. You've
Mm,
got Aja Kong, Kira Hokuto, Manumi Suzuka, and I can't remember, at least another couple of people ahead of you. And then it makes it hard to get headway when you've already got the people who are already on that roster. And the people who are already on that roster are the people who've made more money than any other wrestlers ever have done in women's wrestling. And to show you how big it is, our next video is a little short video of Megumi Kudo wrestling Kuro Maeda again. But we're in Thailand. And AJW goes on tour to Thailand and takes the rookies with them. They're actually wrestling in a boxing ring, not a wrestling ring, because, shipping wrestling rings across Asia is expensive. And you've got the Crush Girls in the main event. And they're packed out, full house in a stadium, which gives you how much depth and well-known these wrestlers were across Asia, not just in Japan. AJW did tour Thailand quite regularly in the 1970s and 80s. So their circuit was exceptionally large. But it gives you the kind of presence and what kind of an international multi-million-dollar company AJW was in the 1980s. And that's, an incredible thing to see. And, alternate Associated Press are doing stories on them.
yeah,
That's kind of the mainstream presence they were.
I saw that. I was like, oh, they getting covered by AP. That's a big deal because up until that, I'm like, this is the first English. But I got it on this playlist. So, but that, like you said, to that point, that's it shows like the amount of notoriety that they were garnering. Real quick before she retired, do you think also could have gotten to that class that you just mentioned had she stayed and continued on the path that clearly the company wanted to take on?
I think she could have done. But there is a possibility she could have just gone, well, how am I going to compete with these people? Look.
Yeah.
Even when you look at 16-year-old Aja Kong, she looks like a monster.
Yeah.
You only have to see Akira Hokuto walking side by side with Aso when they come to ringside, and she just is magnetic. So it is just like, well, I could go do something else. I'm 22. This one advantage of being 16 and in that kind of company and going, well, I could probably go find something else to do with my life. I've not wasted much time here, and I still could go back to university. That I'm sure that's what happened with a lot of them. Or they got married, or they found partners, or they couldn't hack the sacrifices they had to make, which were pretty horrible. And it's if you want to live that life, it's a fantastic life. If you do not want to live that life, it's awful. And if it didn't suit her for whatever reason, I think she could. She had the physical presence. She certainly had the look. And she had the physical connectivity. She wasn't slow. You look at Kudo's, even at 17, Kudo looks like a star, right? As a wrestler. She doesn't look like a star as a human being. Her presentation isn't right. There's something they aren't doing correctly. She hasn't grown into a body. She isn't, she doesn't look like a star that she would become. Aso looks like the star, and she can go with Kudo, who's clearly, trusted to be in a championship match with her, so she has to be some good. But Aso it's difficult to say. I did look her up, and I tried to find information on her, and there's no real story about why she just quit. She just quit. As far as I know. I'm sure there is. I did try and find out because it struck me as like, this is really weird because I'd never really heard of her before watching this match. I'm like, she's really good. Why not? And you just don't find out. It was such a meat grinder in the 80s of exceptionally talented young women. And you've got to get your career done by 26 because of reasons.
Yeah.
You look at now, Aja Kong's in the late 50s now and crashing out 5-star classics on a weekly basis. But you know what I mean? It's like back then,
Yeah.
no, 26, you're done. That's it. There's your career. Go home, get married, have kids.
Yeah,
And
that's right.
yeah, it's like that's an incredible pressure cooker to put yourself under. And Kudo was under that pressure cooker as well. But she decides, well, no, it was decided for her more than she decided that she wasn't developing fast enough, she wasn't good enough. And as our friend Chelsea Spollen said, she wasn't good enough. And I was like, yeah, she was. That was the kind of company that they were in, and they had mouths to feed, and the next ring of talent to come through. And look who comes along in the next class. The next class is Tashiya Yamada, Minami Toyota, Kyoki Inoue. Like, arguably the greatest class of wrestlers ever produced, followed by the second greatest class of wrestlers ever produced. It's like, what do you do in that situation? So it's clear that AJW have got an embarrassment of riches on their hands, and she and Combat Toyota are both let go and are not booked anymore by AJW. Toyota goes to work on indie promotions and wrestles guys and whoever to make a living, whereas Kudo decides to retire, becomes a kindergarten teacher. And that's that. And she's in a class in a kindergarten one day when a gentleman by the name of Atsushi Unita, a wrestler we're all very familiar with, follower of mine on your Twitter there, the new founder of FMW Professional Wrestling, Frontier Martial Arts Wrestling, who has an idea to start a Joshi division in a men's wrestling company, which had never been done before on a large scale. And his 3-star players were going to be Combat Toyota, Megumi Kudo, and their stablemate and fellow dojo sister, Raven Amada. And they make their debut as a tag team at Severe Earthquake, a wonderful Japanglish name, at Kurikan Hall in 1990. So, having retired in 1998, kind of against her will, she makes her comeback in 1990, along with her dojo sister Raven Amada, against the FMW rookies, who are quite clearly green as grass. They have the thing, right? They've got the thing. It's Miyu Sato, Kamiki Matsuda. They've clearly got something about them, but they do not have the experience. And that's the story of the match. It's the reality. They've been taught to wrestle like guys. They've not been taught to wrestle like Joshi, because who was training them? Well, it was the guys that were running the FMW dojo, which is Atsushi Nita and Kazan Goto. And there's gaps to be filled. And if you bring in some ballast at the top of the card, like, for instance, Raven Amada and Megumi Kudo and Combat Toyota, and make them the invaders, suddenly you've got a story, and if you've got a story, you've got a division. And that's really what happened here. And they end up becoming the superstars of the company underneath the men. They're the ones getting laserdiscs made about them, and they're the ones who are becoming kind of the story of FMW aside from the main event. So, Marcus, this is a bit different. What did you think of this?
Yeah, this was interesting. And like you said, this was just kind of one big woodshed match.
Yeah, more or less.
Yeah, and what did you say was the time gap on when she retired versus when she came back? Like a few years?
About 2 years. She was retired in 1988 and come back in. This was April 1st, 1990. So
Yeah,
2 years, 18 months, 2 years.
Yeah, because obviously she hadn't necessarily lost a step. It is like you said, they came in as invaders. Ironically, with the Star Spangled. of it all. So that was interesting. But it is interesting that, we just kind of talk about them being like good at swimming, but like in a pond where it's like elite fish,
Yeah,
and now they kind of get their own pond, which, kudos to the that gentleman that you know saw an opening to do something brilliant. Um, in an all men's company and bring the women forth like this. Put the women in the space where they could really shine and not necessarily have that comparison contrast all the time, and they could really just thrive and do their own thing. So, that's it's really cool to see that somebody, had the wherewithal to give these ladies the opportunity. And it did come from men because it could be a very closed minded thing, as we, extensively talked about.
yeah, absolutely. He needs to know his stuff. Look who trained him. His trainers were Giant Baba and Terry Funk. He has a wrestling IQ that is through the roof. Even in his 60s now, he's still making money from pro wrestling. Only wrestling 2 or 3 times a year, but his aura remains. He's still at Sushi Anita, and at
Yeah.
this point, they're starting to invest in the company. He's started to get he got a Laserdisc deal with one of the Laserdisc companies, and that kind of improved their money as far as production was concerned. But they didn't have a TV show, and they never had a TV show. This is the most wonderful and glorious thing about FMW to me is they were purely built on hard work, graft, storytelling, and solid wrestling. Even with all of the explosions and the barbed wires, which we'll get to see in the next episode, they still had great workers who knew to get the best out of their environments. And the core of it is matches like this. This match is, as we've said it before, this is a scurfing, right? The rookies from FMW versus this invading force. They're getting their ass kicked because there's got to be some form of challenge for them to get through. They have to pay their way, right? This is how wrestling works, and this is how we're going to build this company. Is our kids are going to get their heads kicked in for a while because that's the way it has to go. It can't not be, right? And that's the story of FMW. They are currently the underdogs. This is their anniversary, one of their big shows. It's at Kurikan Hall. And Kurikan Hall is a legendary venue, but it's not very big. We're talking 1,700 people at this hall. Within 2 years, this hall would make $100,000 gates on 2,000 people.
Without
Big they
TV.
got. Yeah, no TV. It's ridiculous, right? That's
Yeah,
madness. Yeah.
yeah. It speaks to the times and speaks to, I mean, just you talk about like the art within that art of, and I'm pretty sure you covering, the foreign side of things, you see it more, but in the States, it feels like a lost art of the skirting. Because
Yeah.
unless that's a new big person and it's just a outright, we're gonna have these guys do a squashes for a couple of weeks as an introductory thing. The skirting of it is like a lost art in the States because like everybody has to be competitive.
Yeah.
Everybody has to look like they're on the same level. And it's not supposed to be like that. There's supposed to be levels. If this person is been in this company this long, is at this amount of championships, gets touted about like this, they really should not be having certain issues of going to certain lengths and matches with certain individuals. But again, like you said, it's so much more about showmanship in the States as for here. It's the story, it's the art of it, it's the, you know, talking about the journey of the young lion to the protege to, you know, getting into a match with the person you was a protege of, and then eventually beating them. It's just more commitment to long form storytelling in Japan, which really makes their retirement some of the best you're gonna see in wrestling ultimately.
Yeah. And this is the thing. This story we're talking about today is that redemption arc. Like, how does Kudo react to being let go by AJW, finding her new family, a wrestling family in FMW, and not only developing herself, but developing this roster and this crew that are very talented and have not been given a chance to shine and don't know how because they've not been put with, they've not been given a platform to succeed. And that's not the fault of anyone's, it's just the way it is.
Yeah.
So we're going to make the FMW roster as strong as we possibly can, and we're going to make it look $1 million, and that's the plan, right? It reminds me of like Valentino Rossi, alternate sports stories. But when Valentino Rossi left Honda, he won 5 titles in the row with Honda, and left Honda to go to Yamaha. And on his first test session with Yamaha, he got a bike no one could win on to within 0.3 of a second of the lap record. And Yamaha said, "We've got to tell everybody." And he went, "No, you don't have to tell everyone. Why are we telling anyone? They don't need to know how fast we are. They need to find out in the right moment. And the right moment is in South Africa at the first race, not right now." And he had to teach Yamaha how to win, because Yamaha had not won for a very long period of time. And he came from a winning crew at Honda. So he taught Yamaha how to be like Honda. And this is what Kudo's story is. I've got to teach FMW to be as good as AJW. We have to be the best wrestling promotion we can be with the tools we have. And that shines through in the way the matches are presented. It also shines through in the stories, as we'll find out as we move forward. Shall we go forward, sir?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so our next match. By the way, that's a full show. If you're watching this thing, it's only the first match on it, but it's the full show of that particular card. And I couldn't break out just that match, so we're going to start moving on now back into singles matches again. So after a while with this dominant force, you've kind of got to have a change of pace. Things are just going to be a bit boring. And the change came when Megumi Kudo turned babyface on Combat Toyota and Rayburn Armada. The following, a bit later that year, to be honest, in August, the summer of that year. And we are at their big show for the year, the anniversary show, which is an outside arena. Myself and Chelsea both reviewed this show many, many moons ago at the early days of the Beginner's Guide to Japanese Wrestling. And this is Combat Toyota and Megumi Kudo in one of their early matches together. And it's a street fight, because Combat was obviously very upset. Megumi Kudo turned her back. Her dojo sister turned her back on her. And so was Rayburn Armada. And Kudo adopts the FMW roster, and they set about, like, what's the thing we can do to kind of, like, separate us from the rest of wrestling. Well, we're FMW, we do violence, right? It's fairly obvious. Why didn't we think of this before? So they have a street fight. It's not as violent as some of the things going on in FMW at the time. The main event of this show was Tarzan Goto versus Atsushi Naito in the very first exploding barbed wire match. But this is still pretty violent. For two best friends, for two dojo sisters, for two women who are trying to make the show, they lay everything on the line, and this is wild, man. This is stiff. This is straight ahead. This is pro wrestling at, like, its most base level. We are going to draw a crowd, and if we don't draw a crowd tonight, we're going to draw a crowd next month, and this is how it's going to go, and we're going to go until we drop. And that's what they wrestled like. This is intense. What do you think of this one, Marcus?
Best way I could describe this, so people listening can appreciate it. It's like both of them owed each other a large sum of money, and they both caught each other, and they both caught each other at the mall. It was that good. That's exactly, and it was on site. Like it was exactly what it was, and the crowd got their money's worth and then some.
Oh yeah. It starts off with Kudo doing a suicida tope straight through the middle ropes and straight into Combat Toyota. That's how you start a match. That's kicking things off right. And then Combat sends her into the chairs and we're off and running. And they're both bleeding within 5 minutes. And they're just running after each other and kicking 7 balls out one another. It isn't a technical wrestling match that you would enjoy with a nice cup of coffee and a sit down. This is not a wrestling classic by any stretch of the imagination. But you can feel the intensity. You can feel like we're wrestling for our jobs. We're wrestling for our future as main event players. And we're wrestling for the future of Joshi. And that you can feel that in this match.
Yeah, it's interesting chaos to watch because the way the camera's going, the way everything's moving, you'll think it's more people fighting than it is. It's just really just two women maneuvering, but the way that it looks, that you pay attention, like, oh yeah, it's just really two women, and everybody's kind of like some people's trying to like save one, and then other people trying to hold them back, and this, that, and the third, and you got the press. Yeah, it's the right amount of pandemonium. Obviously,
Yeah.
we've seen and covered matches that's been far brutaler than this, but this was just the right amount of like piss and vinegar on both ends of the thing, particularly for Combat, who lives up to the name in spades. Uh, she was
This
not.
is
I mean, she came dressed like yeah, she was not. Yeah,
this was the match where she earned the name Combat.
exactly.
Now this is where she became Combat Toyota. You know, she has Matsushi Nitta always loved her, but after this match, she was like, "Your name is now Combat Toyota," because she was just that good in this match, and she's everything you want a top heel to be. She's intimidating. She's dark. She's stoic. She just doesn't give in. There's a nobleness in that, but equally, she's just so scary and dominant. And she learned, you know, she was in Dump Matsumoto's crew. She learned from Bull Nakano and Dump Matsumoto on how to be the most evil thing in the world, and she uses it to exemplary standards here without losing any. She's not a coward. She's not backing down. She absolutely lives up to the fight, and that's a wonderful way to set yourself up for the future because it means you can go more than one way, right? You don't have to be the evil, sneaky heel all the time. Yeah.
Yeah, and I appreciate those because it's like if you just if you bigger than this person, you meaner than this person, all this stuff. Like, why are you running? Like, why is somebody like a Brock Lesnar or Obafemi or anybody of that ilk, or
Mm,
if you want to talk smaller, just on Demon Time period, Minoru Suzuki, why are you running?
yeah.
Like, you the thing everybody fears, so like just bring it on. And here, it's it's great. Like you said, this is the birth of the combat in all its glory, but also it's the start of the thing because it feels like combat had her number.
Yeah.
She might have been able to get aggressive with her, but at the end of the day, I don't think she could match that just sheer unwillingness to go down and that power that she had over her. So it's just told the story with their ongoing rivalry, which will continue down this list as well.
Yeah, absolutely. This is the start point of the big story of FNW's women's division, which would kind of reach a climax in 1997. But we've got a long way to go. We've got an entire other show to go yet, but we'll get this one through first. So let's scooch on to the next match in this particular series, which is 1992. We're a couple of years down the line. FMW has reached possibly its peak drawing power, and we're in the height of Joshi cross promotional era. So all of a sudden, FMW are getting invited onto the big shows. And to do that, they have to be presented to a wider audience. And to present them to a wider audience, you put a dream match together. You know, everyone's going to find out what FMW is about. And this is the anniversary show. Kawasaki Baseball Stadium, 30,000 people in attendance. And who do AJW send to represent them? The living embodiment of Joshi. Bull Nakano and Akira Hokuto. Going up against Combat Toyota and Megumi Kudo, carrying the hatchet for one night to represent FMW at the highest level with the two toughest, finest, greatest professional wrestlers in the world. There's a tall order. They ain't giving up. They ain't going anywhere, and you have to wrestle them in front of this massive crowd who've come to see you and see if you can cut it on the big stage. This is pressure. This is as pressure as wrestling gets. Don't screw up now, or you are in trouble. And all four deliver. It's a scurfing. Bull and Akira are coming to show who's boss. That's the job. We got to kill them. These kids that came out of our dojo and betrayed us, we have to murder them. That's the story they're trying to tell. And Toyota and Kudo, survival is the name of the game. And if they get the licks in whilst they have the chance, that's no bad thing. But this is about Joshi dominance, and this is a story about whose dojo is best. Why did you leave us? Why did you betray us? You're nothing but a bunch of rookies who don't know what you're doing. And for two egos like Nakano and Hokuto, that's perfect. Just absolute perfection. And this is the perfect wrestling story in my book. As far as wrestling, tag team wrestling goes, this isn't really a tag team match. It's two singles matches that happen at the same time.
Oh, that's perfect. I'm not even piggybacking off that. That's perfect.
It is. It is just like it's combat and bull, and it's a Kokuto and Kudo. And it's just perfection of like how you tell a story of intimidation. Like Nakano just blasts Kudo with this killer clothesline and then just invites Toyota in. Come on then, have a go, because you're not hard enough.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if James dropped this in the links, go watch this match.
Yeah.
Everything about this match feels personal, and as it should, because it had to be the representation, for the women, who got put on the show, like you said, in front of this audience. They had to take it there. You got to set the thing. Like, man, they went harder than the dudes. Uh,
Oh yeah.
and in a lot of ways they did. Like I said, everything about this girl pro. This also set the tone. So I'm like, what, like Kudo could take some punishment.
Oh
She,
yeah.
I'm sitting there like, it was times when I was trying to tag for her. I'm like, Jesus. She had some exorbitant amount of minutes. In desperate need of a hot tag.
Yeah. It's just it's relentless. Just relentless. Not to teach a lesson. That's the whole point. And it's like Hokuto and Nakano are heels in AJW. They turn up in FMW and get the crowd behind them. It's like this is the most ridiculous high pressure situation you could put two wrestlers into. But Kudo and Toyota passed the test. They didn't have to win because the expectation was they were going to get killed, and they survived. But it gives FMW somewhere to go. If those two had beat Hokuto and Nakano, then that kills the story, right? We've got nowhere to go at this point. And that's why Hokuto and Nakano are pissed. They just are. I have never seen two wrestlers look more unhappy in a wrestling match. Why do we have to come here to wrestle in front of this garbage? Good God, we're going to kill you. That's it. That stuff pile driver on Kudo. Oh my God.
Yeah, and didn't even go for the pin after that. Just
no.
it's like you said, and it's quite interesting too because we just came off of Kudo participating and being on the offensive side of a skirfing. So
Yeah.
now to be on the defensive, it's like you said, that's the great telling of the levels. Like it's like Toyota and Kudo, nothing to shake a stick at by any means, and it's quite coming off of the match they had for them to be tagging. It's great. It's like when I was like, oh, they gonna give Godzilla somebody to fight next to. It's this bigger, this bigger threat. But
Yeah.
yeah, you have to show that there's levels. Like I said, it kind of ruins it in stateside because everybody has to feel like they're on the same level, which kind of defeats the purpose for a lot of growth, character growth, and stuff in storyline. You don't, like you said, you don't have nowhere to go. If you showed me on the first night, you were just seconds away from getting it. Like, no, these two were not seconds away here. They put up a hell of a fight, but there was a clear veteran versus like y'all good, but y'all just not us.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
nevertheless, like the sheer amount of violence that they packed into 9 minutes. Oh man.
Yeah, there's a handheld version of this, and it's even worse. It's just one camera shot, and you see everything, and it's oh my God, they murdered them. And it is just like Combat and Megumi do get their shots in, but they ain't winning. That's no, but they are simply not allowed. This is not going to happen because Akira Hokuto and Bull Nakano are in town, and they've decided that they are not losing. And just that's it. It's just it's as much as the previous match was beautiful chaos. This is beauty and violence without being overly violent. That's the other thing is like they beat them with wrestling moves, right? They go to Barbed Wire City and they don't even bring a chair with them. They just do it through pure wrestling. There's Bull Nakano delivering a Northern Light suplex, something she never did, right? And then she's just like, just pull it out now, middle of this match, because I can. You know, it's just relentless. And this is the highlight version of the match. The full match is like 25 minutes. You can find it on YouTube. It's on a handheld version, and it's just madness. And they pull out all the stops because Bull and Akira know next time it'll be a bigger show. We've got to go now, right? We got to go now. This is it because we've got. If we can go with these two now, look what they can do for us because they aren't stupid. And this is it. It's a story. How you deliver a story for a long-term reward. And the match ends with Bull delivering her leg drop off the top rope and Akira delivering Northern Lights bomb at the same time in unison to destroy the hopes and dreams of FMW. Because that's how FMW worked, right? FMW worked on you build an eater up, he can't win, he gets his vengeance. And that's what they did. And it's a simple formula and it works. And they did the same with the women's division. They can't win. Hey, they've won. And suddenly you start believing again. And the post-match interviews are fantastic because they just show how disappointed they are with their performance against Benson Nakano and against Hokuto. And it's just crestfallen. Like they came here and they beat us. How? And that's the story of the next series of matches that we'll be talking about. Because the next match is actually from the same year. Hang on a second. Yes. Yeah. The next match is from the following year. I'll get it right. And we're back on opposite sides again. This is from the following year's anniversary show. Actually, it's July. It's their big summer show in '93. And it's Megumi Kudo challenging for the WWA Women's Championship, which was the Women's Championship in FMW. And the champion is Combat Toyota. And this one is actually less violent than the first, because Toyota had kind of turned babyface at this point. Though she was a dead serious wrestler, she wasn't as involved with the heels anymore. And then Kudo is still top babyface. And this is kind of like another chapter in the story of Combat and Megumi, because they've got business to attend to together, but the real business is the WWA Women's Championship, and Combat is still going to do her absolute level best to make sure Kudo doesn't ever get it. And this particular matchup is a lot shorter and possibly not as good as the street fight, but the intensity is different. It's another starting point. They're trying to build the story again. And that I find really interesting, because this one is intense in a different way and possibly not as just like 5-star good, but it's not the point. We're getting somewhere with this match. It's going to lead us somewhere else. What did you think of this one, Marcus?
Obviously, continued evolution in Combat's aesthetic, looking like a final boss. If I didn't know ahead of time, I'd say she, the dye and a half was blood from her enemies or herself that she just kept in. And I just think I love like situations where like the heels, like just find little windows of opportunity that you would just take advantage of, like when people have these entrances that are either telegraphable if you're trying to sneak up on somebody or cut somebody off on the entrance, or beat on somebody before they get out of a wedding dress. So it just makes all the sense in the world. So again, feels like another skirting. I mean, obviously these two are at each other's necks, but they great dance partners. These two great dance partners.
Yeah, this is more of a pure wrestling match. It's obviously not a street fight. So the intensity is not the same, but the principle's still the same of beat Kudo. All right, I respect you now. We're friends, kind of. but I'm still going to win. That's the whole point. And you get to see more of Kudo wrestling in this match as well. She does have a comeback, and she does dominate for a little while, more than she did in on the other matches we've seen this card. The thing is, I think she's starting to learn at this point is you've got to be selfish, right? You've got to be, if you're the star of the company, if you're going to be the ace, you've got to kind of wrestle for yourself and not always for everybody else. And I think a lot of what she was great at in the early parts of what we saw here is selling for other people and, making other people look great. And at this particular point, she has to go, well, if I'm the ace, then I got to be an ace and wrestle like an ace, and I need to make sure I look good as well as them. And you can see that growth in this particular match here, I think, as well.
Yeah, I feel like Okuto, when we covered her, we talked about that with her as well.
Yeah.
As she kind of evolved into the evil character, but I think talking about her, so much of that came out of real life circumstances as well because of injuries and what have you and whatnot. It kind of just made her turn bad or evil or those tendencies to evolve just out of sheer frustration. Kind of came more natural, but I like that story of like, look, if you go to be the quarterback or the head person in charge, you really have to come off like the ace. And like I said, one of her great aspects was her ability to take punishment and stale. But like you said, if you're gonna take the lead, you have to be the leader. And how that's going to depend on you. Looking more dominant. It's just hard to do against somebody like Combat, who by this point is packing people up as second nature to her, particularly Kudo because she's been doing it for so long.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's the intriguing bit about the dynamic between Combat and Kudo, right? Is because at this point, Combat's the ace and Kudo is the ace in waiting. She's the baby face, right? She's the one that's going to be the woman, and she's the one that looks good in a bikini and sells lots of calendars and t-shirts, and she's the star. But Combat's the one that puts the matches together that makes everybody watch. You're in the Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels situation, right? You've got the guy that's going to be the man, but it's the man you need to keep there, or in this case, the woman you need to keep there. And how you develop your sheer babyface is really interesting because we're watching it like 20, 30 years hence, but it fascinates me. And it's stuff like that as well. We're just seeing like Kudo delivers a butterfly suplex off the top rope and Combat kicks out. It's like, what do I have to do to this woman? And it's exactly what kind of like that level of frustration that gives her character, right? It's character building. That's the whole point, We're trying to tell this story of building this woman up to be the unstoppable deathmatch wrestler. This isn't a deathmatch, but it starts here. She's got to be resilient with everything, and Combat just demolishes her in this closing stretch. Everything's so stiff. Power bombs from hell, backdrop drivers, every horrible mid-90s Japanese wrestling move on a ring that does not look like it has much give in it.
At all.
No.
Yeah.
And it's like, but it's tough love because if Megumi doesn't survive that, she isn't going to be the long-term investment that they need her to be. And that's what Combat's teaching her in this match. And that's the story of the match. And it's so well done. Just beautiful pro wrestling. I don't think it's as good as the street fight, but it's telling a different story. And that's the reason why it needs to be here. And why I picked it for this selection. Anything else you'd like to add, Arcus?
Yeah, no, I'm glad you did. They tell, like you said, two different styles in terms of the match execution, but the sentiment's still there. And I wonder how much premeditation goes into, because you know this as well, being great friends. And shout out to Jazzy, your friend, Gabbard. Like, I wonder how much premeditation goes into. It's important to be someone that can build up a kudos, because the business will see more kudos than they will of Toyotas.
Yeah.
Sadly.
Yeah.
Those you just don't, the Jazzies, the Bull Nakanos, the Combats, we don't get them as often.
No.
And if we do, that, we won't get them to that level of skill. Sometimes you'll have somebody the right size and they do everything wrong.
Yeah.
Um, but you'll get more kudos. So it's kind of incumbent to build up if they all kind of like the diamonds in the rough to build those up because it's only going to be so many like I said, those big freakish monsters that can pull it off in the way that the ilk of combat and women like her do.
Very much so. I mean, like Jazz's main job in that era was to get over the young wrestlers on that roster as monster beaters. And you look at the woman who beat her for the title, and that was Io Sky. She did all right.
Yeah, yeah.
So it is like that roster of Stardom at the time when Jazzy was there. It was Kyrie and it was Io Shirai and um, all the women that would dominate Joshi for the next 15 years, and she got them over one way or another by hook or by crook. On the 2 long tours that she did there, she was Kairi Sane's tag partner. She wrestled Io for the championship, and Io took the championship and went on that monster run, one of the best championship runs I've ever seen. Like as good as Misawa or Okada or any of the championship runs we talk about, or Flair or Hogan. And that's right. Toyota was the prototype for Jazzy and the prototype for monster wrestlers of that ilk. That there was a lot of her and Arja were kind of very similar in the sense of they weren't pure monster heels, but they had enough variation to be able to make them interesting.
Yeah,
It's like
yeah,
you didn't stick the championship on Andre because Andre didn't need the championship, right?
yeah,
Andre's Andre, yeah. Well, you can put the title on Jazzy or Combat because there's room to have fun. There's an inch you can give. It's just an inch, and an inch is enough with the right babyface. So that's where you kind of need to put wrestlers like that. But you're right, they don't come along very often. We've got 2 now, right? Bozilla
exactly.
and Megan Bain. Yeah, there's 2 people who are like that, and they'll both happen to be. One happens to be in Stardom, and the other one happens to be in AEW. So they're wrestling each other occasionally. But that's 2 out of all the wrestling promotions in the world. Maybe 3 that were of that class, of that standard, who were that good. And that's really interesting to me. Shall we move on to the next match, sir?
We shall.
Next up, like we said, it's the interpromotional era. And to decouple Megumi Kudo from Combat Toyota for a little while, I thought I'd say this one. So this one is LLPW. We're at Kurikan Hall. Of course we are. How many matches have we watched from Kurikan Hall? I watched 6 today. Miwa Sawato tagging with Megumi Kudo, going up against resident hoodlum Kashi Kurinaya and Norio Tatiano, formerly of the Jumping Bomb Angels. This match amazes me because Tatiano is not happy that she's having to tag with resident heel Kurinai. She don't like her, but all right, if we must. And then she kind of sidles into being a heel halfway through the match because Kurinai is breaking the rules, so I may as well. So the absolute darling of Madison Square Garden, Boston Garden, and Yokohama Arena is now wrestling as a heel in Kurikan Hall. And the crowd are booing her, and she's got this wry smile. All right, yeah, every once in a while I can let go. This is, for those of you who don't know about LPW, we have covered it on the show before, but LPW was an offshoot of Japan Wrestling Project when, amazingly, all the wrestlers on the JWP roster got together and said, we don't like doing entertainment style wrestling, and the other crew, and we don't like doing like shoot fighting. All right then, shall we leave? All right, so they split off and did 2 separate companies under one major company just because the roster went, we don't like doing this anymore and we'd rather wrestle our own kind. Unionization in wrestling, kids, that's what we need.
Right.
Yeah, and JWP and LLPW still survive today. It's JPure now. They lost their own name for some odd reason. But this is kind of a good example of how interpromotional wrestling was working in in the mid 90s. You get your hot team in from another company and all hell breaks loose. And that's what happens here. Interestingly, your referee is Tommy, who is currently senior referee to Marigold. She's still refereeing all these years later, and she was already a 10-year veteran at this point. What do you think of this one, Marcus? Because this is wild.
This was just another good one. You know, we appreciate tag team wrestling here, for sure. So this was really good. And like you said, it was interesting because like Tatiano and Kurana didn't necessarily get along. And it's always interesting. I always keep my eye out on like Joshi wrestlers during this time period who come out with weapons because it's really not just for aesthetics. Like it's a you know very much a clue to what's keying in. So yeah, it's just interesting like the partners that she ended up having. One obviously a rival. I don't know how much she maybe went back and forth over the years with Sato, but
Mhm.
it is interesting like because that's just a completely different skill being in a tag, and it worked for her when it worked to a point with Toyota because in a lot of ways she was like you said she was just having like a singles match running side by side. So but with here you really had to kind of lock in with the partner, and yeah, these women didn't take their foot off the gas either, and just in another way.
Yeah, absolutely. It's more of a wrestling match
Yeah,
than the previous tag stuff on this show, but it is again, it kind of gives you a lot of how they're developing, and obviously at this point, like Sato is still a rookie, though she's got a lot more experience. But Kurenai's a rookie too. She's just tall. she's tall for her age, and therefore she's not been wrestling that long. At 94, she was in the she's been wrestling for 3 years at this point. Sato's been wrestling for maybe 4, but she's just small. And that's the breakup of this particular matchup is like the LLPW women trying to corner Sato to give her to get her break her down and try and get the pinfall early, but she's tough enough and resilient enough to get Kudo in the ring, and then we're off to the races. Because once the veteran's in the ring, then it's going to become much harder work, and that's the story of the match. And it's teacher and protege, except the protege doesn't really get on with the teacher that well, and that's their downfall in the end. I would also like to talk about, because it's the Troopany show and we have to talk about this, Megumi Kudo's perfect hair.
man,
What do you?
I was gonna mention all these female mullets.
Yeah, it's the FMW roster in the 90s, the home of the mullet. It's natural and habitat. That's what I'm looking for. Mullets weren't invented in FMW in the 1990s, but they did perfect it, and in a rare intergender manner, where all the mullets were of the highest importance. Sato has a cracker. Kudo is more of a bangs and traditional like long hair at the back kind of thing going on. But her hair is always perfect, no matter what is happening, whether she's being set on fire by sharks this year or whether she is wrestling in LLPW. It never is a moment out of place, and I find it fascinating.
Yeah,
She doesn't
even
seem
more.
to sweat.
Yeah, even more so because I mean, and we very much appreciate anybody in the long time who've been in this. Know we're great appreciations of great hair here.
Oh
Um,
yes, absolutely.
a lot of good volume. And it's great to look at, but it's like also like they just instead of like the natural hairline, they just grab the hair, and there was a lot of leniency because for a lot of these matches, it's really like can't get out of the gates because you can't get their hands out of your hair. Like so, it's another little piece of the storytelling on top of the disrespect that it is too. But it's like yeah, also kudos to them because I didn't see a lot of it getting pulled or yanked out. So that's some strong, some strong roots.
Absolutely. I also like to put on Kudo was exceptionally well qualified with the hip attack. Obviously, a clear influence on, unfortunately, Raisuke Taguchi, but what else can we do?
Yeah,
And certainly Tony Storm.
yeah,
Because Tony Storm uses a hip attack exceptionally well, nearly as well as Megumi Kudo does. Hoshinaka, obviously from All Japan and New Japan back in the early 80s, was the primary user of the hip attack in wrestling history. He had his retirement last year. But I feel Kudo did it the best of all 4 of them, with Taguchi way off in 4th place, because obviously. But yes. AJ, anything else you'd like to say about this match other than go have a look?
No, y'all go watch this one as well.
Yes. So, we're back in tag team action, and we're back in AJW. We are at All Star Dream Slam, the ultimate cross promotional show. We covered a match, myself and Marcus, on this show not long ago. And we was talking about the pressure cooker of Joshi in the 90s. So here we are. Toshiya Yamada and Megumi Toyota are the best tag team in the world at this point. They have produced breathless matches. They have had an incredible story that started as a feud and ended up being them tagging together. And they are the consummate professional tag team. They're AJW's representatives in this match, and they're going up against Combat Toyota and Megumi Kudo. Here's the level of respect that is being considered in this particular match. This match is the main event. The semi-main event is Akira Hokuto and Shinobu Kandori trying to murder each other that me and Marcus looked at on The Life of Times of Akira Hokuto. Here you are. Biggest card of all time, Yokohama Arena, 14,000 people screaming for blood. They've just seen the greatest women's singles match ever, possibly the greatest singles match ever wrestled. You're on next. Go. This is the ultimate pressure match. You have to deliver. You can't not. This is what you get in the business for, right? This is everything you need to prove yourself to be in this situation. And this match pulls it off brilliantly. I don't think this match gets anywhere near the respect it does, basically because it was a badly booked card, right? You put Kandori and Hokuto on last. You have to, but they didn't. Everyone had to stay around for this. And this match is fantastic. And one of the reasons why I just love it so much is Toyota and Yamada's actions. Like, Yamada walks up to Toyota and just goes, we got this. And then they go out to wrestle. Whereas Toyota and Kudo are kind of pacing back and forth. This is their redemption moment. This is their chance to prove we can beat these guys. We couldn't beat JJW last time, but we can do it this time. We're better, we're stronger, we're faster. FMW has proven itself, and we're here in the main event to take on AJW's best. We didn't do it last time, but we can. That's the story, right? And then they proceed to go hell for leather, and it's just phenomenal. And I love this match. It's not the best match on this series, because there's better to come. You'll be glad to hear. But this is a level of anticipation for a tag team match you rarely come across, because this is dream match territory once again on a card full of dream matches. And when they get going, they just don't stop. It's like they're rookies all over again, except they've got all the toys to play with. And they do. Yamada and Toyota have this reputation for being a high spot team, and I don't think that's unwarranted. They're the best 2 high spot wrestlers that ever lived, so why not? Go with your strengths, right? Toyota is the Japanese flying angel. She's the greatest wrestler of all time. Then Yamada is the absolute linchpin of the team that holds everything together. You're going to run on high spots because that's what brings you to the table. That's made you stars. So you run on high spots, and with that comes risk, and that's the story. Because Kudo and Combat Toyota aren't high spot wrestlers. They're ground and pound fighters. And that's styles make fights. And that's what makes this such an intriguing concept. And I love this match. What's your thoughts on it, Marcus?
Yeah, it's interesting because we've seen that before. Like when that what it was, Mania 25 when Taker and Sean went.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't the last one, but they basically closed the show in the middle of it. Yeah, it's an interesting spot to have. But like the other thing I thought about while you were talking, that kind of came to mind is like a lot of times, like when the rivals end up teaming, and sometimes it'll work out good, but all the time that's not always the case. Sometimes people are just better off as enemies and rivals. But I think it played great here because so much history between them, whether they were friends and then separated off, just like you said, and then have been battling for years. It's so much between them that didn't need to be said, but just the look told the entire story.
Yeah.
Like they last tag team, they really were two separate agendas on the same thing. Two, like I said, two singles matches running concurrent. But here it seemed like the focus was like we have to get this done, and they didn't say that to each other, but they didn't need to because of just the sheer amount of defeat that they felt, really getting the scurfing that they got from the legends in the last match. So it's just like you said, continue to tell that story, and even though like, they had a great match on a badly booked show, which you hate to see, but it happens all the time, unfortunately. It's still a match worth talking about, and this is definitely, I think, probably on this list, the second go watch this match, and the fact that it almost went 40 minutes kind of lets you know that they really let these women cook, as the kids say.
Oh yeah, this is the full meal. You are getting the whole barbecue here with dessert. This is everything they have to offer. It's obvious to put Yamada and Toyota in like the underdog position because they're smaller and they're not as tough, but they are so tough as well. And it's just such a great story because it's got so many layers to it, from the invading hordes of FMW to the fact that again it's ex AJW girls coming back to wrestle the heroes. There is always kind of like a comparison between Kudo and Toyota in the sense of they're very similar kind of characters in the elegance and the style point of view, except Kudo's got a little bit rougher around the edges. She's not quite as clean, not quite as perfect, not quite the aerial artist that Toyota is, but equally she's an exceptionally gifted professional wrestler. And that's kind of like it's the scrappiness that always gets me when you kind of like when you look at it from the perspective of Yamada and Toyota, it's a stepping stone on the way to greatness. When you look at it from the perspective of Kudo and Toyota, a combat Toyota, it's an incredibly important pet chapter in a story that gets them to be two of the best, biggest draws in women's wrestling. And again, it's so stiff. Toshiya Yamada is laying in kicks like she's trying to knock off Kudo's head. Combat Toyota is dropping power bombs like candy everywhere because they can't not slow down because what Kandori and Okuto did. They just hit each other really hard and punched each other in the face for 45 minutes. What are we going to do? You've got to go. That's it. And this is them going at full tilt. And Yamada is so underrated as a wrestler even today. You're watching her here do a stretch muffler. She's the one that popularized that. I watched the Best of Super Juniors match today that was ended with a stretch muffler. Yamada was the one that popularized that. Or half the maneuvers that we see in aerial wrestlers to do, Toyota did it first. This is history in the making as a pro wrestling match. But also it's telling two levels of story, as we find out in the post-match. Is there anything else you'd like to say about the match before we talk about the post-match?
Oh no, like I said, go watch this match. Like I said, it's almost 40 minutes, but it's worth all of it. You don't need English commentary. These women tell the story fully without any of it. So yeah, the post.
Yeah.
Fill me in on the post.
So the post is two stories. First of all, Mayumi Ozaki and Dynamite Kansai from JWP come to challenge Toyota and Yamada for their WWWA Women's Tag Team Championship, which leads to the three greatest matches I think have ever been wrestled, which is a story for another day. We may do a Slife on times on those three matches because they're well worth it. But the one we're interested in, the visit from one Aja Kong, the WWWA Women's Champion, the dominant force in Joshi, and she's interested in Megumi Kudo because she doesn't think Megumi Kudo's had her breaks and should have the chance for the biggest prize in the sport. In the post-match, Dynamite Kansai and Mayumi Ozaki come down to challenge Mayami Toyota and Toshiya Yamada for the WWWA Women's Tag Team Championship, which leads to, in my opinion, the greatest three matches ever wrestled. which we may do a Life and Times on one day, because I think those 3 matches are well worth just doing an entire episode on, because it's the greatest tag feud I ever saw, and the only tag feud that ever got anywhere near it was FTR and the Briscoes, which will tell you how good that is, because people know how much esteem I hold in those 3 matches. This time, we're back in FMW territory, and we've got Toyota and Yamada at the anniversary show going up against Manami Toyota and Toshi Yamada against Tom Back. I'll try that again. I'll edit this as well. Let me put a break in again.
Sorry, cut out there for a second.
It's okay. I'm stopping because I made a mistake.
Oh.
So we're now at the FMW anniversary show. We're now at the FMW anniversary show, and we are back at Kawasaki Baseball Stadium. Once again, 30,000 people in attendance, and this time, Toshio Yamada and Manami Toyota have to walk into the Lion's Den as they face Combat Toyota and Megumi Kudo in their home turf, in their home stadium, in front of a packed house. And this is going to be a different story between FMW and AJW. This is the moment for redemption. What do you think of this one, Marcus?
So again, I just like the fact that just how integral both of them were, Combat and Kudo were to each other in their career, not only just rivals, but as teams. Like I said, it's just a different, almost art form within the art form of the tag team wrestling. And by now, like they've been through enough wars with each other and with better teams and some that were on that level, but they suffered victory but lost together in a significant way, to where it's like they probably locked in a completely different way. So when they come up against like Toyota and Yamada again, it's just a different energy. You like them stories where they, instead of running a match to death, they repeat them because they matter, and they repeat them because they bear repeating, and not just because we need something to do on the show. When you pack out a baseball stadium, you putting on a hell of a show, and I'm looking at it. It's not a semi-packed stadium. These people showed up, so it's it's just another great match.
It really is. And it puts an exclamation point on the story, because redemption is theirs. Toyota and Kudo defeat the thing they've been trying to beat for 3 years now. They finally have a victory over a top-line AJW team. Toyota and Yamada are back in the queue when it comes to the World Tag Team title dominance, which they would reach again, because they're one of the greatest tag teams of all time. But in the meantime, they couldn't survive the pressure cooker of FMW. And we did talk a lot about the dynamic between these two. This match probably isn't quite as good as the first one, but there's slightly less pressure because of the way the match is put together. It's earlier on a card. There's no ridiculous fight to the death going on before it. So the match quality is a little bit smoother and less intense. And also it's kind of like it's a recent rematch. The point of this match is, again, to get redemption for the FMW crew, who finally beat an AJW top line crew, and they get the reward. And the reward is Aja Kong. Aja Kong, the then WWWA champion, she is interested in Megumi Kudo. She doesn't interested about Combat Toyota. She doesn't want a championship versus championship match. She wants Megumi Kudo, her dojo sister, a woman she feels hasn't been given her due. And she offers her a championship match for the WWA Women's Championship. A championship she's been chasing since she was 16 years old. And that ends up being the main event of a show in AJW on, he said, looking at the video, the 24th of August, 1994. We are at Sumo Hall. The old Sumo Hall, 11,000 people in attendance. Not the current Sumo Hall. The current Sumo Hall is half the size. Sure. New Japan outfilled Sumo Hall. These guys filled the old Sumo Hall. And the main event is Megumi Kudo. Well, I've just realised I'm looking at the wrong one again. Oh, I've got to wake up here. Let's try this again. First of all, we're at Budokan Hall. Let's try that for this particular match. And this is putting Megumi Kudo on the card to reintroduce her to an AJW audience. And she's wrestling the person she wrestled in her debut, which is Kaoru, funnily enough. So I put this one on the playlist to give us a feel for how both of them had developed, obviously, in the meantime. Kaoru had a very interesting career, but this is interesting because Kaoru is wearing a mask. She was spending a lot of time in CMLL, a part of the talent swap deal that they had with AJW. And she's kind of much more lucha-based and much more developed as a pro wrestler. And Kudo obviously has her FMW training as well as her development from her AJW style, and has wrestled a lot of lucha as well, because there was a lot of lucha crossover with FMW too. What did you think of this one, Marcus? Because this one is a real interesting pace setter to reintroduce Kudo to an unfamiliar audience.
Yeah, it was just interesting because coming off of like seeing Cairo after, feel like all that time going down the list, it's really interesting to see like be reminded of just like how much size she had on her. But also like the mask was new, and it's like it's cool that she got to go to Mexico and do her thing. But I don't necessarily know if you always see women her size in masks doing what she do. Not that I've seen anyway. So it was just cool to see that. And it's another test for Kudo in a different way. But again, great because so much of her career is defined by people like she, kind of repeat offenders, if you will, but at different stages the way it made sense. And it it matched up to the level that she was at, but also if somebody had lost her previously, you saw the growth in them, which you're saying, like you said, right now with Hero. So but by this time, this is the fact, wow, she's locking in a lion tamer, which, in a specific type of pain. Like like you said, it's the attitude of like I'm the it girl, and if you want to consider anything, you have to get through me, and I promise you that's going to be an all week long thing. So.
Yeah, I'm not one to cast aspersions, but I will point out that Kaoru was in CMLL at the same time Chris Jericho was. I wonder who learnt off of who. Anyway. But yeah, it's an interesting match from that political perspective in one sense of Kaoru. She's kind of like in the same sense as we talked about with Aso, like just retiring. Kaoru went, well, I could hang out here and be a fourth stream tag team wrestler, or I could go to Mexico and be a star. I wonder what I should do. And she used her Mexican experience. She did spend the majority of her latter career in Japan. She came back to Japan in '95 and worked for Gaia, and like I said, had a on and off again career for another 30 years. But this was an interesting one just to stick in here as a aside. She was kind of on the pathway to the main event at Sumo Hall, up against Megumi Kudo. Not Megumi Kudo. Yes. Up against Aja Kong, I'll start that again. So I'm trying to do three things at once. I'm going to have level editing today because I've made so many mistakes. I'm really sorry. So it's the 29th of October. We're at the old Sumo Hall. 11,000 people in attendance. The old Sumo Hall was bigger. The new Sumo Hall only seats 5,000. And New Japan can't fill it. But these guys filled out, sell-out crowd, 11,000 people, making Megumi Kudo and Aja Kong two of the biggest draws in pro wrestling at this particular time. Not just women's wrestling, the whole of pro wrestling. And this was a match for the WWWA Championship. It's everything you kind of want this match to be. You've got the Matsunaga brothers doing a signing. You've got a press conference. The full pomp and circumstance of Japanese professional wrestling is presented for you. And you've got Aja Kong and Megumi Kudo. Aja in her full pomp. She's 1 year into her WWWA championship run. She looks unbeatable. She destroyed Bull Nakano for the championship. She didn't just beat her, she made her statement in a long told story that was a feud that lasted for 2 years. Kudo, side project in one sense for Kong, because her big problem is Minami Toyota, and she's developing quick. Kudo and Kong are dojo sisters, and Kong wants to give Kudo her due. Now Kudo's in this position of being in the main event in the biggest company for Japanese wrestling, the company that left her behind, that told her she wasn't good enough, and now she's wrestling for their top championship against their biggest star. Jaggy Yokota, her trainer, is at ringside. And what do? You've got Aja Kong, the big, scary, stronger, faster, better fighter, tougher, everything that you're not. What do you do with Aja Kong? Well, you wait, and you try, and you throw the kitchen sink at her, and you hope you find a chink in the armor. And that's Kudo's game plan. She just has to keep trying. Try and be faster. She's not faster. Try and be stronger. She's not stronger. Try and strike harder. She will not strike harder. So what do? She finds an arm, and it turns out to be the chink in Kong's armor. And the story is of don't let go of the arm. Used to talk about Okada and wrist control. Kudo invents it here. This is the story of Aja Kong trying to stay away from Megumi Kudo, who turns out to be the most dangerous opponent she has on a run so far. And it's a beautifully told story. Kudo is not reckless because she's learnt the hard way in the toughest environment in wrestling. She's not a wrestler that's going to try and out-grapple you because she knows she can't do that with Kong. But she's a better submission wrestler. So if she can get one armbar in just the right place, and that's the story of this match. And it's just brilliant. Just really, really well done. It's not necessarily the most exciting match on this card, but it's absolutely fascinating in telling a story of how to get a wrestler over in a match and look like she absolutely belongs, because that's the story here. Kudo proving that she's just as good as everybody else that they left behind. What do you think of this one, Marcus? Because this is heart-wrenchingly good in my book.
Yeah, it's just fascinating because I'm looking at Colin and I'm just like, wow, like I don't know, she just didn't have all the championships because for her to be able to move like that, then she got the combat gloves on, and you think she's just gonna be hopping you around, but and here she was more proficient in submissions than Kudo did. So it's weird. Like it's just like really no chink in the arm or no holes in her game, but yet just another like. And I don't know if Kudo has the same experience with Connor she do if she's not having all those battles with Toyota.
Mm.
You know, because somebody like that again, it's those names that's rare air. So not a lot of women that size that can do what they do at the level they doing it at. And in so many ways, really play such a pivotal part in making Kudo. But to your point again, bringing the full circle and really just getting kind of spit in the face, and professionally, in FMW's face, not FMW, but a former promotion for
Yeah.
letting them go.
Yeah. It's beautiful. It's just perfect wrestling. And kudos for AJW for realizing their mistake and putting her in this position as well. You know, we know of wrestling promotions that would never do that in a million years. Big former star? Well, you know, I suppose one did in Cody Rhodes. But generally that's the one they've had, right? Whereas, you know, AJW, they look at Megumi Kudo and go, she can make money. We put her in the right place, she'll make money for us. And she did. And they tell a beautiful story in the process, which also helps Kudo in her story back in FMW. And this is excellent cross-promotional wrestling. This is what kind of cross-promotional wrestling should be about, right? You should be able to help each other. It should be mutually beneficial for you to put shows on with other people so that everybody makes money, not just you. right? And that's, something else we have maligned long and hard about lately in professional wrestling. Some partners are more equal than others. But this is just an absolutely phenomenal wrestling match, and it's not violent. The FMW legacy is a different kind of legacy and a different kind of legacy of matches, which we'll look at in the next part of this particular series. But Kudo is an exemplary professional wrestler, and that's the reason why the deathmatch stuff works. She's the greatest deathmatch wrestler of all time in my book, and we'll be looking at that next. But in the meantime, Marcus, you've gone from rookie to main eventing Sumo Hall with Megumi Kudo. What's your thoughts on her?
Yeah, I think it's just another great example. Just listening, you talk about things kind of coming full circle. That just that saying that a lot of times, obviously hindsight's 2020, but you kind of realize if you live long enough to go through enough stuff, and come out on the other end of, you realize a lot of stuff don't happen necessarily to you, but for you. Because who's to say, she gets to the point that she gets to if she never, kind of gets forced to leave.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, all those years ago, and then she stays there, and then she never faces uh Toyota or all the battles that she went through, which was great building blocks and legendary moments and matches to get to this point against Ajacom. But if she stays there all them years and she kind of gets, like you said, drowned out by just the sheer level of talent, because like we talked about it before, like just going back to New Japan and talking about how hard it was to stand out just in a faction like Lij.
Yeah.
With those stats, it's kind of hard to stand out. So if she doesn't go through what she went through and have to come back full circle, she might not reach the heights that she does. So it's just really cool to see, and I'm glad, like you said, that FMW gave her a shot, and then she came back around, and really got to showcase, what she probably could have did in AJPW, but sometimes circumstances, time period, the roster, a lot of things play a key part. But it's just really cool to see that story come full circle, and if it come full circle in a match against another legend and calm. So you don't get no better than that. So no better way to showcase that in that stadium at that time with that amount of hot business for the women. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And we will look at the hottest of all business for the women in the next show. In this series, we hope you enjoyed listening to us. This has been the Life and Times of Megumi Kudo Part 1. And Marcus and myself will come back for Part 2. Where can we find you on the internet, Marcus?
Yes, you can find me on X at Paradox Kid. That's PARADOXKID. Always down chat.
You can find me at Sheriff Lone Star on Twitter and on Blue Sky and on Mastodon. You can find me on Sheriff Lone Star TX on Instagram. You can find the show, Trooping Show, on Blue Sky, Twitter, and Instagram. And we'll be back next week. Take care and we'll see you soon. Bye.